So last night I got to check out The Wretched, which is the newest witch movie. Witch movie? The witch movie. Yeah, the one with witches. So, wasn't a planned joke, I promise. Probably should have been. It would have been funny had it been planned. But so there you go. Yeah. So this is one I've actually tried to start the review for like a bunch of times now, and I don't really exactly know what I want to say. I know most people would write scripts and whatnot, but you guys know that's not my style. I'm trying to just go off the cuff here. But I kind of want to, I keep going and being like, I want to compare it to Darkness Falls or something like that. Like, we don't get a lot of witch movies, you know? One of the most recent ones, obviously, would be The Witch, but that was set, hundreds of years ago. And then Darkness Falls is one, and Lords of Salem plays with witchcraft, and we don't get a ton of witch movies. I think it's a subgenre that is underutilized. Like, there's not enough werewolf movies, no doubt, and I think that's something we're all in agreement about. But witches, for me, are rarely used in adult horror movies very well. Like, there's a lot of kids' witch movies. You see them in Hocus Pocus and Witches and whatnot. Like, there's a lot of, like, kids' witch movies. And those movies are, they're good, fine, whatever. But the more adult, scary witches, I just think witches, if done correctly, if done really well, like Gretel and Hansel recently, which I thought was fantastic. I absolutely loved that movie. I know I'm in the minority on that, but I absolutely loved it. And the use of the witch in that, the aesthetics, all of that stuff, I think that the witch subgenre is so underused. So it was really cool to see that this was a witch movie and that it was more adult, and it actually has some teenagers dealing with an ancient witch in modern times. Which, putting them in modern times, I actually think is kind of difficult to do. Just because I feel like with witches, they're better set for like the woods at least 100 or 200 years ago or more. Like, modern day on witches, I feel like is a very hard contrast to strike a balance between. And this one does a pretty good job. I think, honestly, I was not super into the movie. Like, it's well made. The production value is nice. Like, it looks like a real feature film. And the characters are all fine. I think there's a lot of things that are fairly generic here. There's even like blatant homages, if you want to call them ripoffs, you want to whatnot, to like something like Rear Window or whatnot, that we've seen plenty of times in films. But with this movie, I kept feeling like I like it, but there's something missing here, and I think it was like originality, flavor, like something that was giving it something that was its own, kind of making its own identity. But I have to say that the last act, like maybe the last 20 minutes or so, did win me over more. Like, I left this film feeling pretty good about it. Like, I was pretty blah on it, and for probably the first hour, and then the last like 20 minutes or so, I was like, oh, that was cool. There's a twist that I didn't see coming that I thought was actually pretty rad. Although, to be honest, I feel like it didn't have the impact it could have had. But I don't really honestly know how they could have made it much more impactful. I have some ideas, but unless, of course, I tell you what the twist is, which I won't do, I can't really tell you how I would improve it, or at least how I think I could improve it. And then the ending. I thought the ending, it's a fairly typical ending, but regardless, I dug it. I like how everything wrapped up. I liked how we found out what happened and all of that. Like, I thought that was clever. I thought that was pretty cool. So the characters themselves in this movie, for the most part, they're all pretty generic. Like, you've got the new kid who is kind of a dorky cool, and then he meets the one girl who's kind of nerdy, but he kind of likes her, and then there's of course the quote unquote slutty chick or easy chick, but she's like the hot chick in town, and of course like his interest is kind of waning back and forth between the two, and will we ultimately know who he's gonna end up going for? It's just there's just and then like so it's just the plot is so simplistic. That's kind of why I skipped over it. It's a witch movie set in modern times with a kid. That's basically all you need to know. But a kid and his dad, they go to this place down by the are they is that the ocean or the lake? I can't remember. But a body of water, and he goes to work down at like the marina, and his dad and his mom are getting a divorce, and he's not happy about that, and so he goes out and he tries to find new friends and gets a job, and while he's there, he's hanging out with the local kids in town, and then he starts to suspect that one of his neighbors has been is either a witch. I think he just thinks she's a witch or been taken over by a witch. But this is one of those movies where yet again, it's like, I wonder what's happening here. Oh, there's a symbol. Let me go online. And then he gets on Google and he types in a couple things, and then he finds just a Pandora's box of information. Like, oh, this is what it is, and this is how you defeat it, and this is what you do. Like, they've got to stop with that. They've got to stop with that. I can't stand the go on Google, go into a library, pick up a book. Oh, I found it. Here's all the information on how to beat it, how to kill. I want to see the people who wrote the book and having to learn how to write that book. Give me the movie of the guy making the journal of how to defeat the things by finding it out. You know, now that would probably be better served for a television series. Of course, that would be like, the long adventures of, but that's fine. And of course, things like that exist, obviously. But it's just so convenient. They have like three ways to do it. They have the library book, they have the Google, internet search, or they have the know-it-all doctor that they found in the phone book or online or from a friend or something, and they call him up, and Vincent D'Onofrio comes on, and he's like, well, it's called Bagul, and I hate that stuff. I just hate it. I feel like it's pandering. I feel like it's like spoon feeding. I feel like it's like, oh, the audience needs to know what it is. It needs to have a very sure, clear idea of what they're dealing with, of how to defeat it. All the ground rules need to be laid out. I'm fucking over it, man. Like, I like movies where they go and they, like, here's a really, really dumb example. But I love this movie, so fuck it, I don't care. Like, in Ernest Scared Stupid, when he finds out that the weakness of the freaking like Trentor and his little troll buddies is milk, and he has to find this out because milk spills, and then they run away, and then something else happens, ice cream, and then just throughout the movie they figure it out themselves that milk is what hurts them. That's the kind of stuff that I enjoy. Like, they figure it out for themselves. They don't just Google how to beat witch. Like, fuck that. I don't know. That shit just annoys me. And they do it in here, and they do it in so many movies. So drop it with that. And as I said, the characters are very archetypal. And the story, the setup is pretty typical. But the production value is decent. The practical effects are solid. There's not a ton of gore to speak of, but what you do see, you do see. It's not freaking, it's like most of it's in camera. So that's cool. So I dig that. Yeah, overall it's a good flick. It's worth a watch. I'm not rushing to it by any means if I was anybody, but I dug it. I liked it. And the end sold me on it more than anything. But we need more adult witch movies, and we need less Googling things. We need less fucking know-it-all dude and the library book that they just open up to the first page, and it's like, fucking centaur, werewolf, whatever, were-centaur. So anyways, let me know if you watch it. Adios.